It's Sarah, and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video, I'm going to show you how to crochet what I call the Effortless Skinny Scarf. The idea of this came to me when I went to Hobby Lobby and I purchased a whole bunch of these what's called color wheel cotton minis or little dollops, and I love these, and I thought they were super fun and a great way to add a pop of color to any outfit. Now, you do not have to have any of those minis to make this scarf, and we'll talk more about yarn when we get a little farther on in this video. This particular skinny scarf measures about 3 inches at its widest point, and the length of it is about 52 inches long. And of course, if you prefer a longer scarf, you can just add more stitches at the beginning. And I'll also talk more about that when we get farther on in the video. Now you can find this free crochet pattern on my blog, and I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. All right, let's talk yarn. Now, like I said, I purchased some of these minis from Hobby Lobby when they had them on clearance. They have lots of beautiful colors, and they have some, of course, that aren't on clearance. Like any yarn store, they're rotating out their colors. Now, you can make one of these scarves with just one of these minis, okay? And the mini has 1.76 ounces, which is 117 yards, and you can make one of these skinny scarf with just one of these minis. Now, the mini is a light 3 in the cotton. If you purchase the one that is a little dollop, it is considered a medium 4. But if you look at these strands, they're quite similar. And you can use either one for this scarf. You can also use your Mandela yarns that are light 3 and any light 3 yarn that you happen to have on hand. You don't have to use these. I just love them because they're self-striping yarns and they're in lots of different colors, and I can make a scarf with just one of them. This one here is made with the Mandela that I had left over. It's got 2 shades of blue and 2 shades of this cranberry and pink in it, and so it makes a lovely scarf as well. And then this one here is made with this color, and this is called Plum Body Loves You. All right, so there's lots of different ways, I should say lots of different yarns that you can use for this project. You can use a solid, you can use a variegated, you can use these striping yarns, or just get in your stash and see what what light number 3 yarns that you have on hand and put them together and make some fun scarves. We're going to be stitching today with our H hook, which is a 5.0 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need a needle just for weaving in ends and a pair of scissors. We're going to begin by stitching 156 foundation double crochets. Now, there are 2 options to starting this scarf. You can start with the foundation double crochet row, or if you prefer, you can chain 158 chains. You can begin in the 4th chain from the hook and stitch 1 double crochet in each of those chains. And you can find that also on the blog where I have the pattern written. And again, that link is in the notes underneath this video. Now we're going to begin with the foundation double crochet. So we're going to start with our slip knot, and we're going to chain 4. Now I realize we're using a thin number 3 or light 3 yarn, and we're still going to use our H hook because this pattern is stitched just a little bit loose. All right, we're going to yarn over our hook. We're going to go in the 4th chain, pull up a loop. We're going to yarn over and only go through that first loop. Then we're going to yarn over and go through the next 2, yarn over and go through the next 2. And so what we've done is we created our chain and then our double crochet. Yarn over, go in that chain that we just made, pull up a loop, yarn over, and only go through the first loop. Now we're going to yarn over and go through the next two, yarn over and go through the next two. And this is how you stitch the foundation double crochet. Now, when you're stitching a long chain or a long foundation row, it's a good idea to have your stitch markers nearby. And so what I do, missing that loop, there we go, is I'll stitch 10 or 20 stitches and then I'll mark it with my stitch markers. And I'll show you that in just a second. Yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, just go through the first loop, yarn over, go through the next two, yarn over and go through the next two. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This will be 8. Nine, and this one will be my 10th stitch. And so what I'll do is I'll grab those stitch markers and I'll put a stitch marker in my 10th stitch. And then I'll do 10 more or maybe 20. And then as I stitch them, I will mark them, and then I don't have to keep going back and recounting. I can count by 10s or by 20s. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to stitch 156 foundation double crochets, or you're going to chain 158 chains. You'll place your first double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook and then stitch a row of double crochets for your first row. I will not be stitching 156. I'm going to work off a swatch of 26 stitches. So, to make the pattern the size that I have on my pattern, you're going to stitch 156 stitches. If you want your scarf to be longer, you can stitch more stitches, and 3 chains or 3 foundation stitches equal 1 inch. And so you can add more if you want to. And if you prefer a shorter scarf, you can do less. So just to repeat, what we're doing for row 1 is you're going to need 156 foundation double crochets for row 1. So here is my 26 stitches because I'm doing a swatch of 26 stitches. You're going to need 156 stitches. When you reach your 156, we're going to chain 3 and turn. And you can see I marked my stitches every 10 stitches. I'm going to go ahead and just pop out those stitch markers. I like to do that just because it makes it a lot easier to count your stitches. Now your row needs to be loose and light because this is a little bit of a open and lacy type scarf. All right. If your stitches are too tight and they're pulling, then you've stitched them too tightly. All right, let's do row 2. Our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, so we're going to double crochet in the next 2 stitches. Now we're going to stitch a row of what I call your cross stitch stitches. So we're going to yarn over, we're going to skip the next stitch and double crochet in the next stitch. Now we're going to yarn over, and we're going to cross back and stitch in the stitch that we skipped. And when you do that, you come back from behind and go through that stitch and stitch a double crochet. And that forms a little X or cross. And we're going to do this all the way across this row. So yarn over, skip the next stitch, and double crochet in that next stitch. Then we'll yarn over and cross back to that skipped stitch and stitch a double crochet. And again, be careful not to stitch your stitches too tightly. Alright, so we're going to repeat this all the way across our row until we reach those last few stitches. So, we'll skip the next stitch, double crochet in the next stitch, and then cross back and double crochet in that stitch that we skipped. And when I do that, there's my skip. We'll go to the next one. We want to make sure that we come behind the stitch and come forward so that it lays nice and pretty. All right, so we'll just continue doing this across until we come to those last 3 double crochets. Once you've done your cross stitch stitches all the way across this row, you're going to end with 3 stitches, and we're going to double crochet in those last 3. We'll chain 3 and turn. I just love how those cross stitches look. Adds a little bit of texture and openness. All right, now for row 3, we're just going to place 1 double crochet in each stitch across. So our chain 3 counts as our first, and we'll just start stitching a double crochet in each stitch. Now, when you're working with the cross stitches, it can be a little confusing where to put those stitches. So when you look at the top, make sure that you put a double crochet in each of those sets of loops, and that'll help you stay on count. There we go. Sometimes I get going a little too fast and I miss my loop. I want to make sure we get into every single stitch. And see how that looks? And so for row 3, we're just going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of those stitches across the whole row of our scarf. One double crochet in each stitch across, and just a reminder, all of your rows should have 156 stitches, except for the trim row, of course. All right, now we're going to chain 1 and turn. If you would like your scarf to be wider, say this is too narrow for you, you can repeat row 2 and row 3 several times until it's as wide as you would like. Once you've completed that last row of your double crochet, which is our 3rd row for the skinny scarf, we chained 1. We're going to stitch 1 single crochet in the first 2 stitches, and our chain 1 does not count as a stitch, so we want to go in that first stitch, and then we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in the next 2 stitches. So 1, 2, and we'll go to the next stitch and stitch 1 and 2 double crochets. Now we'll stitch a single crochet in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2. Then we'll stitch 2 double crochets in the next 2 stitches. And then 1 single crochet in the next 2. 1 and 2. And this is the repeat that causes those shell stitches, and we'll stitch this all the way across our row. 1 single crochet in the next 2 stitches and 2 double crochets in the next 2, and repeat all the way across this row. And see how that makes a lovely shell stitch for the edge? Once you've stitched your shell stitches all the way across, and if you added extra stitches, you may not end exactly with your last 2. Don't panic, just end where you're at. It's not really going to matter. You'll cut your yarn, you'll tie it off, and then you'll use your needle to weave those ends in. And make sure when you're on an end that you don't weave it out to the edge, just in case you might have a little bit of your yarn stick out. I go in, I try to loop it around a little bit, try to go through stitches and edges of the yarn, as well as through the fibers. Okay, and so I'm not on the end, I'm in just a little bit, and I'll clip that off on that swatch. And we don't add any edging at the bottom on either end, it's just the end, and that's all there is to making the Effortless skinny scarf. So here's the end of both of these. You can see we just weaved in the end, tied it off, put it on, and we're gonna wear it. I just love this scarf. It just adds so much color and fun to any outfit. It'll look gorgeous with a sundress, with a tank top, or just a t-shirt. Even your winter coat, just to add a little flair. I hope you have fun with this pattern, and don't panic if you don't have any of these minis, okay? There's tons of other yarns you can use for this fun project.